Hello, this is Rajeev, and today we'll be going over Colombian author Gabriel García Márquez, also fondly known as Gabo. So I'll be calling him Garcia Marquez or Gabo in my video today. So basically, Garcia Marquez or Gabo was born as a Colombian novelist. He was a short story writer, screenwriter, and journalist, one of the greatest writers of 20th century. He was born on March 6, 1927 in Aracataca, Colombia, best known for his popularizing kind of the literary style, like back in the 20th century. He popularized this literary style of magical realism, which is combining reality along with fantasy elements. So that creates this magical realism. And there are other authors who have done a lot of magical realism authors, right? Like Haruki Murakami from Japan and Carlos Ruiz Zafón from Spain, both of whom we have reviewed on this YouTube channel. It kind of this sort of narrative, it creates these magical elements and the events in otherwise like sort of ordinary and realistic situations. So it's an intertwining and a mix of these elements. So Gabo was raised by his maternal grandparents in a small Colombian village, and that's where young Gabo was deeply influenced by his grandmother's vivid storytelling and grandfather's political and historical narratives. So these were sort of the early influences that would later permeate into his own narrative style. So he's blending ordinary with the miraculous and historical, with the mythical, all set against the backdrop of Latin America's social and political landscape around those times that he was writing about. So Gabo began his career as a journalist while studying law at the National University of Colombia. His journalistic works were noted for their direct engagement with the political and social issues of those times, and that put him at odds with Colombia's political establishment. And this is where when he died, he died in Mexico City, and essentially his early novels, which put him at odds with Colombia's political establishment, also made him move to Mexico and live there for some time of his life. And his early stories were published in newspapers and magazines by the late 1950s, and he had begun to establish himself as a significant Latin American writer with publication of his novella Leaf Storm and a collection of the short stories No One Writes to the Colonel. And winner of the 1982 Nobel Prize in Literature, it was awarded to him because of his short stories and novels that illuminated the human condition in those times and overall talking about the 20th century. So he died in 2014 in Mexico City. One of his novels that we are going over today is 100 Years of Solitude, and this novel has been called out as a must-read for everyone around. Like, this also sort of won him the Nobel Prize in Literature. Is what you can consider one of his contributions, besides his short stories and other works, right? The 100 Years of Solitude, it follows the Buendia family over 7 generations. It sort of explores their personal fortunes, the loves and the destinies that were intertwined with the political and the social landscape, and the evolution of this fictional town called Macondo, which is where the Buendia family resides, and all these 7 generations are going through in this particular fictional town of Macondo. The founder of this town, Jose Arcadio Buendia, is an ambitious patriarch who dreams of a utopian city of mirrors that reflect the world about him. and his descendants witness wars, disasters, loves, and deaths, each adding to the complex tapestry of this mythical place. The novel is renowned for its rich, intricate storytelling and the use of magical realism itself, where the supernatural is presented as a mundane part of everyday life. You get to experience all these magical elements as part of the everyday life, and these 7 generations get to experience this as well. The technique is evident in many of the extraordinary events. Remedios is very beautiful, and Remedios, the beauty ascending to heaven, is one example of that magical realism. A rain of yellow flowers and a child bobbing tail, and there is this relationship which is why the child is born with a pigtail, and it's a sort of incestuous relationship which is hidden by the elders of this family as well. The elements underscore the mythical quality of the narrative and reflect sort of the American tradition of blending the real with fantastic and historical with the mythical. That sort of is very evident in the Latin American culture as well. The book, which is blending magical realism into this multi-generational saga, it depicts the rise and the fall of the Buendia family and overall surrounding this town of Macondo, right? And this is a town that has been founded in remote jungles of Colombia by Jose Arcadio Buendia and his wife Ursula. And by the way, this novel is being adapted into a Netflix series, and I wanted to do this video especially because before the Netflix series comes out, there is a trailer, by the way, you can go and watch, of the 100 Years of Solitude. And I believe, I don't know how many episodes the Netflix series is going to be, but to cover this in the right way, because this is classical literature, and you need to do justice when something like this is turned into a series and an episode. So it will span across multiple episodes, I think, clearly beyond 8, I think. But that's me and my personal opinion. So this colorful saga, it works out a wider social and sort of a political allegory. The sense of the strange, the fantastic, and the incredible. The socio-political example is one of the examples is the apparent massacre by the army of several thousands that are the striking plantation workers, whose dead bodies are boarded and loaded into the freight trains and before being dumped into the sea. And against the smoke screen of the official version, the massacre becomes a nightmare that is lost in the fog of martial law. The true history of disappeared workers takes on a reality here, stranger than any conventional fiction, demanding fiction for truth to be told. And that's how fictional authors can work around something like some laws that would not allow, like the real historical writers, right? And the fiction authors can get away with some of these things. But Gabo couldn't escape that, and that's why probably he had to move over to Mexico, right, from Colombia. And the demanding fiction for the truth to be told, right? Such acts are commonplace in some of the military dictatorships that have existed and that continue to exist in some parts of the world today. So this one touches on the themes of solitude. And what does egoism really mean? Solitude, when you are more focused on the self, and what happens with the passage of time and the impact of fate and prophecy. So this is a recurring motif of that is repeating inside the Boendia family that reflects the cyclical nature of history and the notion that individuals and societies are doomed to repeat the same mistakes unless they can break away from forces of their past. So this is a masterpiece from Garcia Marquez or Gabo, and it's about a family or a town, but a rich allegory of social, political, and economic evolution of Latin America itself. There is a complexity in the narrative, there is beauty, and there is depth. These are all the cornerstones of world literature that continue to stay relevant and will continue to enlighten most of the readers of history and how you want to kind of blend that magical realism of fiction along with what really the history has gone through. And he's awarded like the Nobel Prize in Literature for one reason, that 100 Years of Solitude stands as like a remarkable novel that should be read by everyone. The novel that we are going through today is Love in the Time of Cholera. And this one was made into a movie as well. And let me cover the movie a little bit. So in this, you have Javier Bardem, wonderful actor, right? And he's playing Florentino Ariza. And he sees Fermina Daza, which is played by the beautiful Giovanna Mezzogiano. And like Javier notices her through a villa window, and it is love at first sight. And Javier is a man of modest means, and but his skills as a poet awaken a similar passion within Fermina. And I will go through the movie a little bit, so you are encouraged to watch the movie and also read the novel. The Fermina's father disapproves of the affair and vows to keep the lovers apart. And Fermina eventually ends up marrying the aristocratic Dr. Benjamin Bratt, played by Benjamin Bratt, and they move to Paris. Florentina, however, still loves Fermina and patiently waits for a chance to be with her again. And this film was sort of unique, and its inherent line of questioning that challenges the human thoughts and dares to ask, how long would you wait for your love? Right? And that's the theme of this movie, in case you want to watch. And it's one of the streaming channels. You should be able to easily get hold of this movie and watch it. So now, moving into the novel itself, the story revolves around two main characters, Florentino Ariza and Fermina Daza. They fall passionately in love in their youth. And through this brief courtship and a whirlwind sort of it, which is conducted through letters, written letters, Fermina ultimately rejects Florentino and marries Dr. Juvenal Urbino, a wealthy and well-educated doctor. Urbino provides her a life of wealth and respectability, while Florentino, heartbroken, but he still stays undeterred and committed to his love. He vows to stay faithful to Fermina and waits for a chance to win her back. So it is set against the backdrop of a Caribbean port city near the turn of the 20th century. The novel explores themes of love, desire, and overall aging process through the lives of its complex characters. The narrative spans over clearly more than 50 years, tracing the lives of these characters as they navigate through the complexities of love, marriage, fertility, what does it mean, and overall mortality itself. So Dr. Urbino proves to be a devoted husband, although in some part you get to discover that he's not. And he and Fermina share a life filled with achievements, and it's sort of a domestic routine. And meanwhile, Florentino remains committed to his vow, albeit he is also engaged in numerous romantic liaisons with multiple women, and he keeps a record of it. Essentially, one could look at his Florentino's behavior as being rather promiscuous, but he still says, in order to stay away from Fermina's love, this is what he needs to do. And but he never loses his faith in the love for Fermina, and he continues to love her. So Florentino's chance finally comes when Urbino dies unexpectedly after a long, successful marriage. So both of them Florentino and Fermina, his love, are now old, right? And then after Urbino's funeral, Florentino professes his undying love to Fermina once again. And the story then follows like the elderly lovers as they attempt to rekindle the romance they once shared. So Garcia Márquez, Gabo masterfully employs magical realism to transform an ordinary love story into an epic exploration of love in all its forms. Unrequited, platonic, romantic, marital. It covers all these themes. The narrative delves deep into the characters' emotional lives, exploring how they deal with love and loss over the decades. And this is nicely captured by the actors and actresses in the film adaptation as well. That's what I personally felt. Javier Bardem is a wonderful actor, right, playing Florentino Ariza. And through this exquisite prose of Gabo, the novel examines the social norms and the expectations that shape personal relationships over a passage of time, and sort of covers the inevitability of death itself. And love in the time of cholera, you'll see in the background or in the novel also it's covered that it's the enduring power of love, true love, and a sort of meditation on the nature of passion, the resilience of human spirit, and the ways in which love can transcend time, age, and even death. It remains sort of a profound and deeply moving literary work that is that invokes like a rich emotional theme within the readers itself. So I would certainly go and recommend to read this novel as well as watch that movie. You can do either one of them. It's a wonderful thing to catch either one of them. So the next novel going over today is The General in his Labyrinth. This novel offers a fictionalized account of the last days of Simon Bolivar. He liberated much of South America from the Spanish rule, and the narrative reimagines Bolivar's final journey from Bogota to the Caribbean coast of Colombia, and it is his final attempt to leave South America for his exile in Europe. And it's a reflection on his life, struggles, and the decays of his dreams for the continent of South America itself. The novel starts as Simon Bolivar, known as the General, is preparing to step down from power, and ultimately he will be sailing off to Europe after his resignation as president. He is very weak and deeply disillusioned, haunted by betrayals, the political failures, and the unraveling of his visions for Pan-American unity itself that he was fighting for. Gabo portrays Bolivar as a complex, multifaceted character. He is charismatic, idealistic, yet plagued by insecurities and a deep sense of failure that continues to haunt him. Despite all of his achievements, right, he has a deep sense of failure that is haunting him. As Bolivar travels through the towns and the villages, Gabo uses flashbacks to weave the historical details of his life, from his military victories and the political battles to his personal relationships and the death of his great love, Manuela Sainz. And throughout his journey, Bolivar encounters old friends, enemies, each meeting kind of evoking the reflections on his past deeds and what they have personally gone through, and what Bolivar is reflecting on some of these historical things that have happened in the timeline. The narrative is not just a recount of Simon Bolivar's final days, but also a profound exploration of the solitude and despair that often accompany great leadership. As soon as you're a leader, you are at the top of the pyramid and that pinnacle. So Gabo illustrates the labyrinth of Bolivar's thoughts and memories. It reveals a man who is very introspective and all too human, and all the human elements are at play here. And Simon Bolivar is weighed down by what he couldn't achieve. One would say if he liberated South America from the Spanish rule, he has achieved everything that he can in his life. But there is also that feeling that Simon Bolivar has, that some of the elements that he couldn't achieve. So despite one viewing him as successful, right? From an external viewer, you would view him as successful. The general in his labyrinth is sort of a meditation on the inevitable decline that follows a great power and a sort of loneliness that you get to experience in leadership, and the disillusionment that comes with sort of the unfulfilled dreams. And what sort of unfulfilled dreams? You'll get to experience that in this novel. Wonderful lyrical prose and compassionate lens that Gabo is offering a haunting portrayal of one of Latin America's most iconic figures. He presents a narrative that blends historical fact with imaginative fiction, sort of in a way that questions the legends and realities of Bolivar's life and legacy. So that's it for today, and see you soon with another novelist and some of their novels.